If you check your clock, you'll see it's almost Valentine's. So let's get in the spirit of things by talking about love poems. We've talked before about the importance of having your readers in mind as you're writing, and that's got to be doubly true if you're writing a love poem. If you're writing a poem to express your love to someone, there's no way you can succeed if you don't have that reader in mind. Now, I'd argue that all writing is, or at least should be, a gift in some way, but it's most obvious when you're actually going to give your writing to someone. And of all the types of writing, love poems are probably the most likely to come with a bow and box of chocolates attached. They are literally a gift. But there's more to the gift of a good poem than just the paper it's printed on. Really, the gift of a poem is the gift of seeing some small part of the world in a new and more meaningful way. So if you're going to write a love poem that really lives up to its potential, you're going to have to show your dearly beloved just how much you love them. And that is going to require specificity. Be specific is probably one of the most common comments I leave on papers when I'm grading. So, while we're talking about love poems specifically today, the things that we'll talk about will be helpful to you no matter what you're writing. So whether you're drifting in an amorous fog and just looking for the right words to express it, or you're reheating leftovers for one and writing an essay for class, I've got you covered. Now, when we start dealing in specifics, that usually means focusing on much smaller details. So the advice to be specific can sound kind of counterintuitive if you're searching for the words to express your grand, ineffable love. But the fact is that reaching for the bigger and more impressive is probably going to let you down in the long run. And to see why, here's a poem that doesn't spend too much time dealing with specifics. To my beloved, I love you so much. Heaps, really. You're more dazzling than all of nature. Time with you is utter bliss. And every night my dreams are full of your goodness. You're the best. You're mine, my dearest Valentine. Okay, so this poem is clearly motivated by powerful feelings of love, but this non-specific poem is really struggling to make a very convincing case for the poet's love. And its lack of specificity is its biggest weakness. First of all, just from a technical standpoint, the broad generalizations in this poem just aren't very engaging. There's nothing to see or hear or smell. By opting for broad, dramatic declarations of love rather than focusing on specifics, this poem has made itself really abstract and pretty boring. There's just not really anything to hold a reader's interest. But it gets much worse than just being boring. Remember, this is a love poem after all, and while it makes really bold declarations of love, this poem could have been written by anyone in the world for anyone else in the world. There's nothing in this poem that is actually specific to two people. Anyone could send this poem to anyone else and it would serve just as well in every case. And of course, it wouldn't be serving very well in any of them. You know, nothing says "you're my one and only" quite like a poem that could be printed in a generic greeting card and shipped nationwide. So yeah, specificity of detail is important. But specificity of the relationship between reader and writer is also crucial, especially if you're writing a love poem. So if you really love someone and you want to express it in a poem, it would be worth making sure that that poem could only be about the person you're writing about, and that it could only have been written by you. Be specific. Don't write a bland, interchangeable poem. The rhetorician Gerard Hauser once explained that we don't love in general or in the abstract. Our love is always tied to specific experiences that we have with specific people. So, to start out, a good love poem will be about a specific person. So you might begin by thinking of all the things that you love about a person. Just start brainstorming, and then cut or revise the things that aren't specific to that one person. For example, you might love that someone is kind, but lots of people are kind. So what can you say about kindness that is specific to them? What have they done that is kind? How have you seen that kindness in action? Maybe you write about that time they sent you an encouraging note when you were stressed out writing a paper for a class. Or you might love their beautiful eyes, but again, lots of people have beautiful eyes. So what is it about their eyes specifically that you find so captivating? Is it the way they seem to change color and flare to life in the sun when you're out for a walk? Then say that. Of course, none of this is to say that generic compliments are worthless. There's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, nice shoes" to someone, but that compliment isn't poetry. If we want to write a good love poem, we're going to have to write things that are true and specific about the one person we're writing to. In addition to writing a love poem that is specific to your reader, you might also want to think about putting your poem into a specific context. All good poems have specificity of context, and a love poem is no different. So again, don't express your love in the abstract. It's not that you love the idea of a person, you love an actual person. So where has that love come alive? That might be a good place to start your poem. Then, rather than loving someone from the void of rumination, write about the experience you shared on the hiking trail, standing still, hand in hand, watching deer in the distance. Recently, we talked about how the classic rule show don't tell is really about giving your readers evidence for the claims that you make in creative writing. By putting your declaration of love into a specific context then, you're not just telling your reader that you love them. Instead, you're giving them convincing evidence that you love them by reflecting poetically on an experience of that shared love. You see, when you're showing them a real moment of love in action, it gets a lot harder for them to say, "Oh, but you're just saying that." And finally, you'll want to make your love poem specific by saying things that only you could say. If you're doing the other two things on this list, then you probably won't have much trouble with this, but it's still worth keeping an eye out for those things that anyone else could say. For example, you don't need to tell someone that you love them to the moon and back. First of all, what does that even mean? And secondly, anyone could say that. A perfect stranger could walk up to your beloved and come up with that declaration of love. So say the thing that only you could say, something that comes from the heart and is unique to your love for the person you're writing to. So get the red roses and blue violets out of your love poem and instead find some expressions of love that your reader will know could only have come from you. They can still be simple and straightforward, but they shouldn't be things that you're used to hearing other people say. Like any piece of writing, a good poem depends on specificity for its success. Specificity is interesting, persuasive, and moving in a way that broad generalizations just aren't. It's true of all writing, and it's especially true if you're writing a love poem. But to conclude, let's take a look at a new poem, a much more specific upgrade from the one we started with. For
Copwood.
Last
winter,
when the
which
took us to a field suddenly full of
tortured souls,
you turned in surprise, your eyes catching the
moon, like icy golden mirrors,
and you smiled, same as always, and
chilled
my
heart.
We stood, quiet, content, staring at the waves of
sorrow
that neither of us had expected. Much as I never expected, even my most vivid dreams, to go drab and lusterless against the memory of that
blighted winter night.
Now this might not be a perfect poem, but it's far and away better than where we started, and all it took was a healthy dose of specificity. Well, I suppose that's enough chatter for today. The clock is ticking and the Valentines are coming, so I guess I'll leave you to get started on that meaningful, specific poem. In the meantime, dear viewer, thanks for watching. If you found our spin through specificity useful, give this video a like and share it with all the hopeless romantics in your life. And with that, we'll see you later, next week to be specific.